I'm here to talk to you about the Torah. I'm serious. No one said it. Why are we talking about the Torah? Let's talk about the Torah as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about it. Okay? And let's start with that inshallah ta'ala. In the very beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. And then what? Someone give me the next ayah. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. And then what? And then what? Okay, and then next? MashaAllah, they all memorized Surah Al-Baqarah it's from the miracles of UIC. It took one night. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ. Those who believe in what was revealed to you and what was revealed before you. At the end of Surah Al-Baqarah, the divine verses that were given to the Prophet ﷺ in the heavens. كُلٌّ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ وَكُتُبِهِ وَرُسُلِهِ. They all believe in Allah, they believe in the angels, they believe in the books, and they believe in the messengers. Surah Ali Imran starts off with Alif Lam Mim. Someone give me what it says next. نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق مصدقا لما بين يديه وأنزل التوراة والإنجيل من قبل هدى للناس وأنزل الفرقان. Amazing. Surah Ali Imran starts off with something very similar. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down this book to you in truth, just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the Torah and the Injil. Before that, it was hudan linnas, a guidance for the people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the Quran, hudan lil muttaqeen and hudan linnas, a guidance for the pious, a guidance for the God conscious, a guidance for the people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the Torah, fiha hudan wa nur. When Allah azza wa jal revealed it, it had guidance and light inside of it. And Allah describes the Injil, the Gospels that were revealed to Isa alayhi salam, fihi hudan wa nur, that it had in it guidance and light. The Quran, Allah does not say in it is guidance and light. Allah calls the whole Quran huda and nur, guidance and light. What happened? How is it, subhanAllah, that we are supposed to hold these original scriptures in such high regard? And what does that mean for us today? To say as a Muslim, it is one of arkanul iman, one of the articles of my faith, that I believe in the Torah that was revealed, and I believe in the Injil that was revealed. Why is it an article of faith, and what does it mean today? So it's way too long to go through a full dars, a full lecture, or actually dissect the Torah then and the Torah now. So I'll give you some highlights inshallah ta'ala. Number one, many of the ulama say the Torah and the Injil are the greatest revelations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after the Quran. And there is a correlation between what was revealed to ulul azmi min ar-rusul, the greatest of the messengers, and the greatest of the messages. Right? So what came to Musa, what came to Isa, Suhuf of Ibrahim, the Zabur of Dawood, what came to the greatest messengers are necessarily the greatest messages. The Quran being, of course, the greatest that was given to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is the Torah? What was it then and what is it now? How did the tahrif, how did the alterations of the Torah happen to where it is what it is now, and what does that mean for us today? SubhanAllah, this is a rich discussion amongst the ulama. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that I have been given in the place of the Torah the as-sab'a min al-mathani aw al-tiwal, the 7 often recited surahs or the 7 long surahs, right? The 7 long surahs being in, of course, according to many of the scholars, when you look at the first 7 of the Quran, some of them said that if you were to take after Al-Fatiha, Al-Baqarah, Ali Imran, Al-Nisa, Al-Ma'idah, Al-An'am, Al-A'raf, that is the approximate length of the original Torah to Musa alayhi salam. So some of the scholars said that is what was revealed in terms of length, okay, to Musa alayhi salam. Some of them said the character of those 7. If you look through the 7, the first surahs of the Quran as we're going through now, what are you listening to? You're listening to obviously a reminder to honor the covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're listening to a lot of law, legislation, right? Sharia, a lot of Sharia comes down. in these chapters of the Quran, because these are the first chapters that were, for the most part, with the exception of Al-An'am, that came down in Medina, by which a society is built, right? So dietary laws, marriage laws, laws of war, ethics, all of these things come in these surah, right? In these chapters. And a reminder that victory comes through upholding the covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and destruction comes with turning your back on the covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So stories of victory and stories of destruction. So some of the scholars said that this is the essence of the Torah as well. A lot of law and a lot of reminder to uphold the covenant. And if you uphold the covenant, then you'll have the success of those who came before. And if you turn your back on the covenant, you will have the destruction of those who came before. So some of the scholars said that. Another thing that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned is that the Torah was revealed on the 6th night of Ramadan. And by the way, the Prophet ﷺ said this about all of the revelations, the major revelations, that it coincided to the month of Ramadan. That Allah Azza wa Jal chose to deliver these divine messages in the month of Ramadan. So you have the Torah that came down in Ramadan to Musa alayhi salam, divinely written, divinely inscribed, one of the greatest revelations that came. How much of it is still there? There's a lot of debate there too, and I can't unpack it all, but you'll find the writings of Ibn Hazm and Al-Bukhari, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Al-Qayyim, talking about how much of the Torah remains today and how much of it was altered and how was it altered. Okay, and this is where it starts to get very interesting. Some of the scholars, they said if you look through the history of the Torah, that most of it, that there is in it most of what was divinely revealed, but the tahrif, the alteration of the Torah came through the additions in terms of the bulks of it. What does that mean? وَيْلٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَكْتُبُونَ الْكِتَابَ بِأَيْدِيهِمْ ثُمَّ يَقُولُونَ هَذَا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. Woe to those who write the book with their hands, and then they say this is from Allah. So Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah says, when you think of the sections of the Torah that were added, especially when it comes to the stories of the prophets and things that contradict some of what we would see as fundamental to the law, fundamental to the legislation, fundamental to the character of the prophets, he describes this in a very interesting way, that they elevated the words. Think of like the tafsir of the Torah, right? They elevated some of the writings over time that were politically driven, that had agendas and things that contradicted, and they put them into the divine book. And so it broadened the Torah. And so the divine words, many of them are still there, and that's why, subhanAllah, you'll find that there are a lot of similarities. If you read the Old Testament and you read from our law, you'll find a lot of similarities.